What just happened in this exchange between Senator Amy Klobuchar and Attorney General Pam Bondi goes straight to the heart of whether the Justice Department is actually independent, or just saying it is.
At your nomination hearing, I specifically asked you to provide assurance to every member of this committee that the Justice Department will only follow the facts and the law, and the White House will play no role in the cases investigated or brought. You stated in response, this was you, politics will not play a part in my decisions. And you also said the Justice Department must be independent and must act independently. Do you believe that you have upheld that commitment?
I absolutely have upheld that commitment, Senator. I pledged that I would end the weaponization also of the Justice Department, and that America would once again have a one-tier system of justice for all. And that is what we are doing in this country.
We saw this with the president directing an investigation prosecution of Chris Krebs, the former head of cybersecurity, Lisa Cook, who is a current governor of the Federal Reserve, Director Comey. And the president, and I know you have said that you will not discuss discussions you've had with the president about Comey. Is that correct? That you won't testify here about that? Because I was going to ask you if you received advice, instruction, or request from anyone at the White House to direct the department to engage in any investigations, prosecutorial actions, including decisions not to investigate or prosecute anyone.
I'm not going to discuss any conversations.
But then how about the Truth Social post on September 20th, 2025, in which the president said, "We can't delay any longer, Pam," using your name, "not bringing criminal charges are killing our reputation," his words, "and credibility." And then goes on to tell you to prosecute a member of this committee, to prosecute the Attorney General of New York, and to prosecute James Comey. Do you consider that a directive to the Justice Department?
Senator Klobuchar, President Trump is the most transparent president in American history, and I don't think he said anything that he hasn't said for years.
Okay, it has been reported that you initially pushed back against requests by senior Trump administration officials to push out or fire the acting U.S. Attorney in Virginia, Eric Siebert, who's a conservative Republican, who made the decision that the evidence was not there to prosecute Comey. What made you change your opinion?
I am not going to discuss personnel decisions.
Okay. Is it true that the career prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia found that there was insufficient evidence to bring criminal charges against former Director Comey?
I am not going to discuss pending cases because Comey was indicted in the Eastern District of Virginia by, I may point out, one of the most liberal grand juries in the country.
Okay, let's go on to other firings or terminations. Last week, the Justice Department fired at least 2 senior attorneys in the Eastern District of Virginia, including the office's national security chief, Michael Benary. It is reported that his firing came following criticism from a right-wing social media commentator who wrote, "One can only assume he was part of the internal resistance in the Comey indictment." In fact, he did not work on the Comey case. Instead, he was working on pursuing justice for service members killed in Afghanistan. How does firing a 20-year national security prosecutor enhance public safety?
Senator Klobuchar, I'm not going to discuss personnel decisions, but the personnel issue that I'm having right now is that all of my agents, all of my lawyers are working. My agents are on the street working without a paycheck because your party voted to shut down the federal government.
Unfortunately, the House isn't even back here. They're 18 days off the job to even meet with us to come up with a resolution that we would like to discuss with them about saving people's health care. Let's move on to the Antitrust Division. Did you authorize your chief of staff to overrule top officials in the Antitrust Division to settle the challenge to the Hewlett-Packard Enterprises Juniper Networks merger?
Senator Gail Slater runs my antitrust unit, and she is doing an excellent job on many, many cases. As you know, that is a pending case.
Okay.
In any merger, just to clarify, in any merger, Senator, there is a deal struck with our office and with the corporations involved, but then that also goes to a court to certify in any merger. In any merger, it's a multi-step process.
Okay, I
and
will
that
ask some
process
further
is still pending,
questions
Senator
about
Klobuchar.
antitrust. I just had one other thing. DOJ can now take the extraordinary step of subpoenaing journalists. Has the Justice Department issued any subpoenas to journalists under the updated guidance?
Time has expired.
Okay, I'll ask
you
those
may
on the
respond,
record.
Ms. Bondi.
You can respond, she said.
Oh. Senator, my office in April restored the Justice Department's longstanding norm on this issue. It was AG Garland who had deviated on the media investigations policy, allowing self-identified journalists using this self-serving status as a shield against being held accountable for endangering our nation's security. We have taken that policy back to the norm, and I can't comment on whether we have or have not, or do not have pending investigations.
And this is where the conversation really needs to slow down, because moments like this don't always explode into scandals right away. Sometimes they just quietly reset the rules. What Senator Klobuchar was pressing on here wasn't ideology. It wasn't personal animus. It wasn't even about James Comey specifically. It was about whether any attorney general, under any president, can genuinely claim independence while sidestepping every serious question about pressure, retaliation, and political signaling. Because let's be honest, independence isn't proven by saying, "I won't discuss that." Independence is proven by what happens when the most powerful person in the country publicly demands prosecutions by name, and the Justice Department either draws a clear line or doesn't. What we saw in this exchange was not a clear line. We saw an attorney general who insists, repeatedly, that politics plays no role, while refusing to say whether presidential demands were inappropriate. We saw career prosecutors reportedly pushed out after reaching conclusions the president didn't like. We saw social media outrage appear to carry more weight than decades of national security experience. And we saw oversight questions answered not with facts, but with procedural fog and partisan counterattacks. That matters because institutions don't collapse overnight. They erode through normalization. First, it becomes normal for presidents to publicly call for prosecutions. Then it becomes normal for attorneys general to brush that off as transparency. Then it becomes normal for prosecutors to worry about whether their legal judgment will trigger political backlash. And eventually, justice stops being about evidence and starts being about alignment. That's not a hypothetical. That's history, here and abroad. And what makes this moment especially unsettling is how calm it all sounded. There was no shouting, no meltdown, no viral outburst, just a steady refusal to engage with the core concern, who actually holds the power inside the Justice Department when the White House wants results. Because if the answer is the law, that should be easy to say, clearly, directly, without qualifiers. But if the answer is, it depends, then we're already in dangerous territory. Klobuchar's questions weren't radical. They were basic oversight questions that any functioning democracy should be able to handle. And the fact that they kept hitting the same wall, "I won't discuss that, I won't answer that, I won't characterize that," should give people pause, regardless of where they fall politically. You can believe the DOJ was weaponized in the past and still believe that re-weaponizing it in the opposite direction isn't justice. Accountability isn't about settling scores. It's about restraint. It's about consistency. It's about proving that the rules don't change depending on who's angry on social media or who's posting on Truth Social that day. And when firings, indictments, and prosecutorial decisions begin to line up with political pressure, even indirectly, the burden of proof shifts. The public deserves more than assurances. It deserves transparency backed by action. Because once trust in the Justice Department is gone, it doesn't come back easily. Every future prosecution becomes suspect. Every decision becomes partisan by default. And the very idea of equal justice under the law starts to feel like branding instead of reality. That's the real takeaway from this exchange. Not that Pam Bondi lied. Not that Amy Klobuchar won. But that the answers never quite match the stakes. And when the stakes are the independence of the Justice Department, almost convincing isn't good enough. If you care about the rule of law, this is the kind of moment you should be paying attention to, not because of who it targets today, but because of who it could target tomorrow. If this breakdown helped you see the bigger picture, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still thinks these hearings don't matter. And as always, drop your thoughts in the comments.